All right, Panther Lair, let's talk about why Jaland Lowe is #1 in this week's power rankings. Now, you know, if you've been following along, that the first iteration of this article was a preseason edition where I ranked 3 Panthers going into ACC play. This version is the first edition that actually ranks them based on ACC games. So really good job from Jaland here to perform well in the last 2 contests to put himself in position for this #1 spot. Let's talk about why. The first thing I want to highlight here is his ability to just get all the way to the basket off the dribble. You see that here in the first clip. This is a baseline out of bounds, kind of turns into some zoom action here, and Jaland is just going to blow by RJ Davis. So not really known for being a great defender, but is a good athlete. And the thing that impresses me most is when Jaland knows when to drive. So this is going to be traffic right here with Guillermo Diaz-Graham standing here. There's no reason to drive this ball, but when he finally does, because he'll just take a couple steps back, then he reinitiates. And he does so in a manner that kind of leaves him all the way to the rim, wide open there. Draws the goaltend. The second thing I want to point out here is how well he uses ball screens. Now, when Jaland uses ball screens, the timing, the way they're set, in conjunction with each other is pretty good for a freshman. I would say very advanced, because you're always going to see Jaland's man in a position of recovery because he used the screen effectively. And to the screener's, credit as well, that it was set well. So you're going to see that here against Syracuse. And again, that straight line speed all the way to the rim. Now here in the second clip, you are going to see that again. You're going to see Armando Bacot. He's going to establish a drop point, which he pretty much did against anybody in this scenario, right at the 3-point line. But what I wanted to highlight here was just how well Lowe is able to play, make decisions, and shots with a defender on his hip. Now, against drop coverage, a lot of times that just invites a mid-range shot. I don't know if, you probably settle for that if it's Lowe. You probably want him to shoot a mid-range shot. But the hat's off here because he doesn't just do that. He doesn't just settle for that. You're going to see here he's going to get this high ball screen from Federico. Bacot establishes that drop point right at the 3-point line. And what's going to happen here is Lowe's just going to play with his defender on his hip. And he's just going to allow Bacot to sink back to the point because he's going to eventually have to defend this rolling Federico. And then he's just going to get his floater right off the glass here with Bacot not in a position to contest, with just the comfort of being able to play with his man on his right hip for pretty much the entire time. Again, uses the screen well, so a defender in trailing position. Bacot's going to continue to sink down here with the rolling Federico, a little hesitation. And yeah, Bacot is never in the position to contest this shot, and Lowe just shows a great amount of comfort with his defender on his hip. We see that again later on in the game. Similar situation. Bacot's going to establish that drop point right here. This time, Lowe's going to hit that jumper, but what you're going to see, again, 2 things. Defender in trailing position, not necessarily the perfect timing here in terms of using the screen, but you don't always have to, right? I mean, sometimes varying the pace, varying what you're doing is good and surprises the defense, but the goal here is the same thing, which is going to be RJ Davis on Jaland Lowe's hip, right hip. Bacot's going to continue to sink, and Lowe's just going to be very comfortable kind of putting RJ Davis in jail here, keeping him on his hip, keeping behind him, and then he just steps in for this nice jumper. Here we see Syracuse be a very similar thing. His defender is going to be in a trailing position. It's going to be a screen and a rescreen. And Lowe is just so comfortable snaking these out, dragging these out, and he's going to hit the jumper right around the free throw line here. And then a really good job, a really good example of kind of snaking this out again comes in transition. Fetty's going to set this drag screen here. And you're going to see Lowe's going to reject the screen going right. So a positive sign here that he can go either way. That's not really been an issue with Lowe. It's finishing with the right hand. Going either way has definitely not been an issue for him. And he snakes this out. Now, one of the things I love about snaking this out in drop coverage is that keeps the defenders in help even longer, because this drop guy gets kind of put in like no man's land more or less. And all of these 3 defenders are going to have to be in help longer, which means they're going to have to account for rolling Federico. And then these rotations potentially could be taken advantage of if the ball gets kicked out. But instead, Lowe just snakes this out. Defenders have to stay in help much longer, see, so no one's able to help on Lowe. Does a really good job pump faking, and then just the comfort to step through. So really good job here by Lowe. His feel on ball screens is so advanced, whether he's trying to score, whether he's trying to find his teammate. And I'm going to have a voice overlay for that right after this one. Just really, really outstanding stuff from him. And such a comfort, such a poise. He's had 6 assists and only 2 turnovers in these 2 games. He shot the ball really well. He's actually rebounded the ball well against North Carolina. So he's certainly in a position to see his minutes continue to go up. He was at 25 minutes, a season high against Carolina. That could push closer closer to 27 or 30, depending on how well Ishmael Leggett plays in this next game. So it's something to monitor. Jaland Lowe, #1 player this week.